Ladies and gentlemen, I call to order the 6:30 p.m. session of the April 7th, 2015 meeting of the Arvada Planning Commission. Ms. Brown, would you please call the roll?
Randy Caswell. Present. David Goff.
Here.
Steve Hannon.
Here.
John Sullivan.
Here.
John Kraus.
Here.
Patricia Connell.
Here.
Ed Rothschild.
Here.
Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The minutes of the March 17th, 2015 meeting have been submitted for approval. Are there any additions or corrections to the meeting minutes? There being no corrections, the minutes stand approved as printed. We'll move on to petitions and communications. And this is a time when anyone may address the commission regarding items that are not listed as public hearings on tonight's agenda. The public hearings scheduled on tonight's agenda are the Subway restaurant conditional use permit and the Moore Brothers Farm annexation. Additionally, we would ask that you would hold comments you may have regarding any application that has been filed with the city or which is likely to be filed with the city until the public hearing on those items, where we will welcome your comments. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address the commission regarding anything else? All right, so we'll move on to public hearings. At this time, I'll explain the procedure for public hearings. The applicant will be given an opportunity to make a presentation. After the presentation, I will ask those in favor of the applicant to speak, and then those who are in opposition may speak. The applicant will then be given an opportunity for a rebuttal. After all the testimony has been heard, the public input portion of the hearing will be closed, and questions will be taken from the Planning Commission. I would now like to swear in anyone who wishes to speak in any public hearing matter before this commission this evening. Please rise, raise your right hand, and I will swear you all in now. Anybody who's going to testify tonight at all? Okay. Do you solemnly swear that, or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in matters before this commission is the truth and nothing but the truth? If so, please answer I do. Thank you. You may be seated. All right, moving on to public hearings. The first public hearing is CUP 2015-0001 Subway Restaurant Conditional Use Permit. I think this simply needs a motion for vacation. Mr. Kraus?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the Subway Restaurant Conditional Use Permit be tabled until further...
Needs to be vacated.
I'll be vacated?
Yes.
Oh, I move that it be vacated. Sorry?
Is that the actual? Okay, commissioners, cast your votes. And that passes 7-0. All commissioners voting in favor. All right, so moving on to Moore Brothers Farm, ANN 2014-0007 annexation, and Z 2014-0013 Moore Brothers rezoning. Are there any posting or notification requirements?
Yes, there were. There were 3 forms of notice that were required. One was a posting in the newspaper, one was a sign on the property, and the other was a mailed notice to adjacent property owners. Staff did take care of all 3 of those forms, and everything is in order.
Okay, thank you. Are there any additions or corrections to the staff report?
No, sir.
Okay. And is there a representative of the applicant?
That's me. The city owns this piece of property. It's 51.45 acres. It's located at the, if you want to throw that up, located just north of the intersection of 72nd and Ward Road. The property was owned by the Moore Brothers. Sorry, we're trying to get this up for you. It was owned by the Moore Brothers family since 1903 and was always used for ranching and farming purposes. The city acquired the property in 2002 and since that time has continued to keep those types of uses on the property. There currently is a lease agreement for someone to continue haying and cattle operations on the property, although right now I don't believe there's any cattle actually out there. There is the 4-H club, though, that is using the barn structures and the corrals. There's one calf on site, and then there's the chicken coops have been fixed up so that they can have the ability to have 2 4-H members raising chickens out there. So currently, that's the only use that's occurring on the property, and the long-term use is to keep that kind of use in operation. There is no specific plans in place at this point in time. It's something that the city has identified there needs to be a master plan done for, but there isn't a timing set aside for that. If you go to the next exhibit, there's the annexation map shows where there is also an existing easement through the property where eventually Ward Road will extend northward. So you can see it starting from the middle of the property at the bottom, and it would extend up and around the farm and ranch buildings and back to the middle of the property as it gets to the north edge. So that will be the future alignment of Ward Road. But again, there's no funding and there's no timing, and that's not anticipated anytime soon. So the purpose of this right now is more to do a housekeeping measure, getting city-owned property within the city's jurisdiction and city boundary, just for ownership purposes. There's no plans to change any use out there or anything like that. The current zoning in the county is A2. The proposed zoning in the city would be C1, which is what we zone all our parks and open space. It's for conservation. So the intent, again, is to keep it as an open space property. It is prevented by the purchase agreement. There won't be any active sports facilities, so there won't be any tennis courts or ball fields of any of that kind of use on this site. It's supposed to be, again, more open space and agricultural type uses that will be here. All those heavy sports facilities will continue to be catty corner across the street to the southwest where you've got Apex and the skate park and that kind of stuff. So I think that's all I have as far as a presentation. If you have questions, please let me know.
Okay. So at this time, I will now open the hearing for comments from the public. And state your name and spell it, please, and
Yep.
for the record, and your address. And if you could tell us if you're speaking in favor or against, that'd be helpful.
Hi, my name is Brandon Figliolino. That's Figliolino. I live at 7893 Allison Way 302 in Arvada, and I am elated to see this proposal brought forth. The Moore property is absolutely stunning, and I would love to see it brought in as open space, and so I hope you bring it on C1. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I close it for public comments, anybody have a change of heart?
Do I need to be sworn in?
Yes, if there's anybody else who's decided they'd like to give public testimony before we close it, go ahead and stand up now and I'll swear you in. Anybody? Okay. We go back to the oath. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in matters before this commission is the truth and nothing but the truth? If so, please answer I do. Okay. Please come to the podium. Please. And again, spell your name for us if you would, please, and give us the address where you live.
Good evening. You need an address on this building? You know, I couldn't find an address. What is it?
I don't know. We'll mention that.
I can't believe it, you know. But anyway, I've lived on 72nd.
I'm sorry.
I'm Norma Vessa, V-E-S-S-A, Viz in Victor, E-S-S-A. I've lived there since the Wood Brothers built it. That was in 71. And it's been a nice neighborhood, particularly since Moore Brothers had that beautiful farm ranch there. Very nice, quiet, peaceful. We just this past year, got our Leiden Creek Park all updated and modified where it's, and of course we had the flood tearing down the banks, so we have some large rocks there now, so we're getting some beautification. But it was my understanding that the last of the Moore brothers said he was giving it, I don't know if it was to Jefferson County or if it was to just the city of Arvada, contingent on their not using it for anything other than open space. And frankly, I'm afraid we're going to have 1,000 houses over there, and 72nd is going to be a 4-lane highway. Right now, we've got 2 lanes. And we can hardly get out of our little area now. You know, we're going to be needing a light. And if they build a bunch of houses, like I'm sure well, if Arvada gets it, I suppose they'll be building the houses. I don't know. But I'd like to see it open, and I would hate to see Ward Road opened up to 80th. I mean, they only have to go to Sims Street to get up to 80th.
All right, thank you very much.
That's my comment. Thank you.
Hello, I am Debbie Klissis, K-L-I-S-I-S. I live at 14301 West 72nd Avenue in Arvada. May I ask a question of the planner? Is that something I can do, or just?
Maybe the best way is if you just kind of state it as a question.
As
You
a-
won't get an immediate answer, but then they'll have a rebuttal and they'll address it.
I see, okay. My question, my limited understanding, I looked at one point, was the zoning for the city of Arvada C1. Zoning does not allow for a lot of agricultural uses, so it was kind of my question if and as a 4-H leader and as a 4-H, my children are in 4-H, and I think it's a great opportunity for the 4-H children to be able to use this property. It's a wonderful asset when, especially all of Jefferson County has limited agricultural opportunities. So I just wanted to see if, I didn't want the C1 designation as the city to impede on those uses, so I would like to see those continue. Thank you.
Thank you. And do we have one more? Again, your name and spelling and
Good evening.
address.
I am Cindy Stroschein, S-T-R-O-S-C-H-E-I-N. I live at 7300 Urban Drive, right next door to the farm. I love the farm, and I think I just want to add, I really don't want this to change, where if there's any way that commercialism comes into it, don't want it. Now, whether the C1 zoning is only for conservation, it would be really, really nice, being it is set up as a farm and has been that for more than 100 years. It would be really cool to see this go toward things like 4-H. Keep it open, keep it as it is. We have lots and lots of birds around the pond and really cool stuff. Don't want to see any houses go through or go up. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, would you mind giving a, I don't know if I call it a rebuttal, but maybe a response?
I'd be more than happy to, maybe starting working backwards. With response to her recent question regarding C1, the way the C1 district is defined in our code is it's intended to preserve tracts of land from urban development and to preserve land for parks, open space, recreational areas, greenbelts, trails, waterways, and floodplain areas. So it will preserve it in that manner as open space. And then if you look also at Section 5 of the Land Development Code, as far as allowed uses, agricultural uses such as crop production, farm, pasture, grazing land, poultry, hatcheries, farming, ranching, etc., are allowed as a conditional use in the C1, so that means that there is some oversight looking at what's being proposed as well, but it would be a possibility to have those uses on that property. And then there's, community gardens and community-supported agriculture. That is an allowed use on C1. as well as greenhouses without retail sales. Not that anybody's proposing a greenhouse, but just in the list of allowed uses, that's what's allowed in that zoning district. So that answers that question. With regard to the alignment of Ward Road, that easement is already in place, and that has been that way for a number of years. But again, when that will ever get constructed, nobody knows. There's no funding and no foreseeable funding in the near future. The future alignment for Ward Road is that it is to extend from 72nd, it would go north towards the house and then again swing around and go to the north in the middle of the property. And then that subdivision, just go back again, it's probably still better at the aerial. The subdivision with those large lots just to the north is called Cameo Estates, and on the eastern edge of Cameo Estates where this would tie in, there is already a right-of-way dedicated for right-of-way through there. And then once it gets through Cameo Estates, it extends north and west over to Alkire, and actually would tie in with Alkire as it extends north up through 80th and 82nd. So that's, and Double E Ranch, when that was constructed with that in mind. That alignment is already there, and that roadway was built for that purpose. So it's been planned, but again, when that connection gets made is unknown at this point in time.
And it's not before the Planning Commission tonight.
Correct. Just the annexation and the zoning is at this point in time. The one lady was concerned about houses on this property. Again, the C1 zoning does not allow for any houses on this property at all. I think that answers the questions.
Does that mean then that any business, a commercial business, could not be on that lot?
Again, the property would be zoned for open space purposes, so it's you know, if it was an agricultural oriented business or something that the city, what's the word I want to say, subcontracted to, as long as it was an allowed use in the zoning, they could possibly do it. But to say that there's going to be a store out there or any kind of commercial like that, no.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment section and open it to questions from the commission. And no questions?
I got some.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Rothschild.
Yeah, just a quick question. So the use by the 4-H now would not require a conditional use under the change of zoning, would it?
Miranda, I'm assuming not.
Pardon me, I thought the 4-H already had a statement in that new,
That's an existing use, so I think in any event it's going to be considered, you know, at worst.
I'm sorry,
Excuse me.
at this point, we've closed the public comment section. We're going to...
Yeah,
the
you know,
commission's
it's a
asking questions.
very low-level, non-intrusive.
I understand. I just want to make sure there's no hiccups in their continued use.
No, we certainly don't foresee the need for a conditional use permit
Right.
for those existing uses as it's annexed into the
Perfect.
city.
Thank you.
Ms. Caswell, did you...
That was
No.
the only question
Okay.
I had.
No other questions? Okay. With that, I think we're ready for a motion. Mr. Rothschild?
Mr. Chair, I move that ANN 2014-0007 Moore Brothers Farm annexation located at 12605 West 72nd Avenue be recommended to City Council for approval. This motion is based on the findings of fact and approval criteria on page 4 of the staff report.
Is there any discussion of the motion? No. Seeing none, commissioners cast your votes. And that passes 7-0. All commissioners voting in favor. And I believe we have a second motion.
Somebody, I'll go ahead and make it.
Anyone?
Mr. Chair, I move that Z 2014-0013 Moore Brothers Farm rezoning from Jefferson County A2 Agriculture to City of Arvada C1 Conservation located at 12605 West 72nd Avenue be recommended to City Council for approval. This motion is based on the findings of fact and approval criteria on pages 4 and 5 of the staff report.
Okay. Is there any discussion of that motion? No? I'd just like to make one comment. I'm pretty excited about this. I've been kind of watching and wondering where the more farm annexation would come for a long time. It's a pretty cool property, and I'm glad that we're marking it C1 in conservation, so we'll have some lasting, remembrance of that property. So, commissioners, you may cast your votes. And that passes 7-0. All commissioners voting in favor of that as well. All right, well, thank you, staff, for your work on that, and I think in our other items, we have just, I think, one item, we need to cancel the meeting for April 21st, as we have no items scheduled. Can I get a motion to that effect? Mr. Kraus?
I move that the April 21st meeting of the Arvada Planning Commission be canceled.
Okay. Any discussion? Commissioners, cast your votes. And my mother will be happy because that's her birthday. So that passed 7-0. All commissioners voting in favor of that as well. Are there any other items the staff has? No? All right. With that, I believe we are adjourned.